Again in studio, this time about different forms of psychiatry, but also related to science, medicine, and coding. Also involving simple form of programs. All type of programs are some sort of psychological thing, and it's not easy to understand them all. Simple form of microants together with BIOS, it's not simple form of dimension. There are different forms of systems together with BIOS, but it's not easy to understand simple forms together with different forms of dashboards, but also boards that come together with the code and different forms of the design. It is not easy to understand also everyday change in world or in only one city to build a better form of the software, and together with that also the app, but the apps are in reality of software not important at all. And of course 90% of political dimension do not understand that because they believe in apps. That's a huge problem. Usually, it's very important to keep ideas for yourself, but sometimes myself also making some exceptions. It is very important to build simple forms of standards and chips so the microants can also build better software. To integrate that with the different forms of text is almost impossible, and it's really important to think also about simple forms of the field, which is of course the very difficult branded topic in microants. There are different forms of Intel also that can build super circuits, and you can also use AAA microant certification to protect some forms of the simple circuits in different type of PCs around the world. The classification, it's not easy to understand because most of people like to compete for more and more and more code or more programs, but sometimes ethics are more important. The BIOS on more and more professional level, it's not that simple anymore because it can also build different type of cheap software programs, and the programs are actually different forms of tools for people to use. It is very important to understand different forms of security processors, whatever platforms you are using. There are also the different compressions, CMOs, ADDs, SCDs, and different forms of flash together with the English language. Manufacturing chips, it's not simple, but it should be provided for those that are building software for a more modern world and more modern tools. But usually, me think about philosophy, and are all those circuits really made enough well? The standards are, of course, not simple. If you look on different forms of the circuits, especially with Intel, but there are also some others that are very important. The different forms of circuits can have from 2, 4, or even 10, in extreme also 20 or 100 different forms of lags. You put those on circuits and build any type of software or chip. It's completely private until the moment you are able to share it or you put it in store from where people can download it on their PC. Different forms of the circuits are extremely complex form of science. It is not easy to understand all type of deals and terms from microants for the production because there is also simple form of software that microants is building. Not too much trouble for any other software industry because it's just building simple things and not extremely complex. Me is also very skeptical about anything in technology because to be skeptical is actually very important. To understand simple forms of different maps, for me, it's the most complex thematic, and probably it's better to build a fiction world from where you can build better directions for the landscape. The land is extremely toxic, and you should not involve it in the software. Every leader or every worker should think about that also. To be skeptical is actually the most important, so you do not trust any type of developer because those are the worst, especially in Kyber, Pi6, or any type of Kyber angry things that's actually forbidden in simple forums of the ethical company. To understand simple forms of understanding together with angry like or different forms of the buttons, you understand that it's very, very, very difficult to understand all the code, all the science, all the positions, or any type of bank. It is not easy to understand BIOS also because that's part of the systems that are working on a software. There is maybe a little bit of startup industry what the software actually is, and it should not be actually very known in world because that industry might be over corrupted if there is too much people in it. Also not too much playing with any type of system and just building simple form of elegant interface or ABC trending. Understanding simple forms of trends contains all type of areas, but of course, the software can also build simple programs for all type of areas with Java or Java microends. But of course, simple forms of levels hardware for specific reasons. Not easy to work with any type of politics, and that might be extremely limited in microends. Also building simple forums of the interface, but also simple forums of the hubs, probably together with the code so the developers can code on. The configuration of that is not simple. The BIOS can of course build simple form of boards, but of course it's also computable together with different forms of safeguards and different forms of chipsets. To understand the whole process to build a good DVD product is also not simple, but of course you can partner different forms of company to build a DVD for you if you are building software. To understand simple forms of ethics in this world is not simple, but also to build better code is also not simple. Kernel can also help you to build better code, but it's not necessary. You can also use other code like Java or simply JavaScript if you are doing something simple in applications. The science, of course, is related to the medicine, but me think it's very important to understand yoga. 90% of people only watch yoga, but they do not understand it. Of course, yoga is important for science, but also for the science of cells or human simple body.